The waiting room of Viridia Innovations, a gleaming beacon of tech prosperity in the heart of bustling Viridia, hummed with a nervous energy that did little to ruffle Ethan Vance's quiet composure. In his late 30s, a decorated disabled veteran, he sat ramrod straight, his immaculately pressed but simple suit a stark contrast to the casual designer wear of other applicants. His gaze was steady, observant, even as a subtle tremor, a lasting echo of an old combat injury, occasionally ran through his right hand. He projected an aura of quiet dignity, his precision evident in the way he meticulously smoothed an invisible wrinkle on his knee, his unwavering integrity etched into the calm lines of his face. He wasn't seeking glory, but purpose, a quiet desire for meaning beyond the battlefields he'd left behind. The air conditioner hummed, a low backdrop to the soft rustle of papers and the click of keyboards from unseen offices. Suddenly a splash. A visibly flustered junior employee, burdened with a teetering stack of files, had accidentally sent a freshly brewed coffee cascading over a pile of important documents near the reception desk. Papers scattered, dark liquid staining pristine white sheets. Most people in the waiting room averted their eyes, pretending not to notice the minor catastrophe. But Ethan, without a word, rose. He didn't draw attention to himself. His movements were calm, efficient. He reached into his pocket, pulling out a clean, neatly folded handkerchief. "Here," he offered quietly to the mortified employee, his voice low and steady. Then, with surprising dexterity despite his hand's tremor, he knelt and began to methodically gather the scattered papers, his movements precise, almost surgical. He separated the wet from the damp, organizing them into neat piles, his quiet helpfulness a stark contrast to the general indifference. As he carefully folded the slightly damp handkerchief, a faint, almost imperceptible scar was briefly visible on his left wrist. It was small, no bigger than a thumbnail, and shaped like a tiny, stylized compass rose. He quickly pulled his sleeve down, covering it as if it were a private mark. The scar, he knew, carried a faint, almost unnoticeable warmth, a subtle thrum against his skin that often signaled a moment of profound change or revelation. It hinted at a deeper, untold story from his military past, a significant event that had subtly shaped his destiny and connected him to a larger, more impactful world beyond mere employment. A sharp, imperious voice cut through the hum of the waiting room. "Mr. Vance, the CEO will see you now." Ethan was ushered into an office that screamed power and efficiency. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking panorama of Viridia, the city sprawling beneath like a meticulously crafted circuit board. Awards gleamed on minimalist shelves, intermingled with expensive cutting-edge tech. Behind a sleek glass desk sat Eleanor Harding, Viridia Innovations' brilliant but ruthlessly ambitious CEO. In her early 40s, she was impeccably dressed in a razor-sharp power suit, radiating an aura of polished authority and barely concealed impatience. Her dark, intelligent eyes scanned him for a fleeting second, before flicking back to the tablet in her hand, her fingers tapping incessantly. "Mr. Vance," she began, her voice crisp, devoid of warmth. She didn't offer a handshake, didn't invite him to sit properly. Her questions were perfunctory, rapid fire, focused entirely on quantifiable metrics. Typing speed? Software proficiency? Can you handle high-pressure environments? She skimmed his resume, her lips thinning imperceptibly as she paused at disabled veteran. "My time in service taught me adaptability and meticulousness, Ms. Harding," Ethan replied, his voice calm, controlled. "I believe those skills are highly transferable to any administrative role, and my precision with details is—" She cut him off, her gaze still fixed on the tablet. Yes, I'm sure. Look, Mr. Vance, while we appreciate your service, your resume lacks relevant corporate experience for our fast-paced environment. And quite frankly," she finally looked up, her eyes cold, dismissive. "We need someone who can handle all tasks without potential liabilities. Viridia Innovations values efficiency above all else. We'll be in touch." The words hung in the air, a polite dismissal thinly veiled with corporate jargon. She saw him as disposable, a number, a potential inconvenience, not a person. She felt a brief, almost imperceptible pang of annoyance at the disabled veteran tag, considering his military background utterly irrelevant to her fast-paced corporate world, a world where only ruthless efficiency mattered. Her fingers resumed their incessant tapping on the tablet, already moving on. Ethan understood. He was dismissed. The door clicked shut behind him, sealing him out of a world he'd barely touched, the hum of the waiting room now feeling like a deafening silence. The dismissal from Viridia Innovations hit Ethan with the familiar, dull thud of a door closing. He'd faced worse, much worse, in desolate landscapes far from gleaming city towers. But this was a different kind of wound. It wasn't just the rejection. It was the casual contempt in Eleanor Harding's eyes, the implicit judgment of his worth based on a superficial assessment. He spent the next few weeks navigating the labyrinthine job market of Viridia, a city that suddenly felt indifferent, almost hostile. Every application for an administrative role, even those he was demonstrably overqualified for, met with a polite but firm rejection. His military record, once a source of pride, seemed to be a liability in the corporate world, whispered about as lacking relevant experience or not a cultural fit. It was as if a silent, unseen network was subtly pushing him away, making him an outsider in the very city he sought to rebuild his life in. His savings dwindled. The crisp suit he wore to interviews began to show wear. He ate frugally, living off cheap, instant meals that tasted of loneliness. He spent his days in quiet contemplation at public libraries, not just searching for job listings, but delving into business journals, financial reports, and the intricate workings of the tech industry. He analyzed market trends, studied corporate structures, and read every biography he could find on successful business leaders. He had always been a strategist, a meticulous planner, and even in this forced downtime, his mind sought patterns, vulnerabilities, and opportunities. He found himself drawn to articles about mergers and acquisitions, the quiet, powerful shifts in ownership that could reshape entire industries with a single, unannounced move. But the pervasive sense of being blocked, of being invisibly shut out, gnawed at him. He knew, instinctively, that Eleanor Harding had a wider reach than just her own company. He'd seen her name, her company's influence, mentioned repeatedly in tech industry forums, at city council meetings, and in financial columns. She was a rising star, and he suspected she cultivated a network that, perhaps unknowingly, upheld her dismissive worldview. He felt a deep frustration, not just for himself, but for countless other veterans and individuals who faced similar biased rejections in a world that valued profit over proven character. One evening, as he sat in a dimly lit, nondescript cafe, nursing a cup of lukewarm tea, his left wrist began to tingle. The faint scar, shaped like a miniature compass rose, subtly warmed against his skin. It was a sensation he'd learned to trust, a quiet internal compass guiding him toward moments of unexpected significance. He looked up, and his gaze landed on a small, unremarked-upon financial newspaper abandoned on the next table. His eyes snagged on a headline buried deep within the business section. Investment group poised for major tech acquisition. Viridia Innovations a key target? His heart gave a curious thump. He picked up the paper, his fingers tracing the bold print. The article speculated about a shadowy, extremely private investment group, known only as the Centurion Group, quietly accumulating significant shares in various tech firms across the country. They operated with extreme discretion, their leadership cloaked in anonymity, their moves calculated and precise. They had a reputation for identifying undervalued companies, injecting capital, and then implementing sweeping, transformative changes from the top down. The article mentioned rumors that a key architect of this group was a veteran, someone with a background far removed from traditional finance, known for their unconventional strategies and unwavering commitment to long-term value beyond immediate profit. A jolt, like a quiet electric current, ran through him. The name, the veteran connection, the strategic precision. The scar pulsed with a gentle, insistent warmth. A memory, long suppressed and fragmented, began to resurface, not just of the battlefield, but of hushed conversations in sterile, high-security rooms, of complex data analysis, of strategic planning on a scale far beyond anything a low-level administrator would handle. He recalled discussions about the Centurion Protocol, a highly classified deep analysis intelligence program he'd been instrumental in developing and implementing during his final years of service. It was designed to identify patterns of influence, expose hidden networks, and predict market shifts with astounding accuracy. And the leader of that secret program, the one who had seen his unique analytical mind and brought him into its inner circle, had often referred to their covert operations as the work of centurions, quiet, strategic, and utterly decisive. The pieces, disjointed for so long, began to lock into place with chilling clarity. The compass rose scar on his wrist wasn't just a mark from an injury. It was a discreet, almost ritualistic tattoo, a symbol adopted by the core members of the Centurion Protocol, a silent bond of shared purpose and ultimate discretion. It was a mark of belonging to something far larger and more powerful than he had consciously remembered. He hadn't just worked for the Centurion Protocol. He had been a pivotal figure within it, a key architect of its very methodology. And the unseen investor in the article, the key architect of the Centurion Group, that was him. His own operational code name, given to him within the classified circles of the Centurion Protocol, had been Aegis, signifying protection and strategic defense. The truth hit him like a slow, unyielding tide. He hadn't been rejected by Viridia Innovations as a dismissed veteran. He was, in fact, the unseen force, the very investor who was about to acquire it. The frustration of recent weeks transformed into a cold, focused resolve. Eleanor Harding's casual dismissal, her embodiment of the very corporate elitism and short-sightedness he now recognized as a systemic flaw, felt like a personal affront to his principles. This wasn't just about a job anymore. It was about exposing the arrogance of unchecked power, about proving that true worth lay beyond superficial judgment, and about reclaiming the very company that had so carelessly cast him aside. He would not just buy the company. He would redefine its values from the inside out. He would return, and he would return as its new owner. The scent of polished wood and hushed power hung heavy in the air of the executive floors at Viridia Innovations. For the past 6 months, Eleanor Harding had been a whirlwind of focused ambition, meticulously preparing for the next phase of her company's growth. She had launched a series of aggressive, seemingly brilliant marketing campaigns, secured several high-profile partnerships, and systematically streamlined operations, often by ruthlessly cutting what she deemed dead weight, including, unbeknownst to her, a certain quietly observant veteran. She radiated an aura of absolute control, her every move calculated to propel Viridia Innovations to the pinnacle of the tech industry, solidifying her reputation as a visionary CEO. Her days were a blur of high-stakes meetings, relentless negotiations, and strategic maneuvering, all designed to cement her image as an unchallengeable force. Yet, despite the outward facade of success, an undercurrent of unease rippled through the upper echelons of the company. Whispers, like subtle static on a secure line, had begun to circulate about a mysterious, anonymous entity known only as the Centurion Group. This entity had been quietly, almost imperceptibly, acquiring significant shares in Viridia Innovations over the past few months. Their methods were unusual, their presence cloaked in extreme secrecy, and their intentions utterly unknown. Eleanor, despite her formidable intelligence and extensive network, found herself increasingly frustrated by the lack of information. Her attempts to uncover the identity of the Centurion Group were met with impenetrable silence, leaving her unnerved by the thought of an unseen hand subtly pulling strings in her domain. For Ethan Vance, these months had been a period of intense, strategic quietude. After his dismissal, he had not faded into the background as Eleanor had expected. Instead, he had meticulously activated his highly classified network from his days in the Centurion Protocol. He leveraged his unparalleled analytical skills, honed in the shadows of intelligence operations, to meticulously orchestrate the acquisition of Viridia Innovations. His moves were precise, calculated, and utterly silent, a masterful execution of the Centurion Protocol's principles of strategic infiltration and decisive action. He worked from a nondescript, secure apartment overlooking the very cityscape dominated by Viridia Innovations, its gleaming tower a constant, ironic reminder of the slight he had endured. He pored over endless streams of financial data, identifying weaknesses in the company's structure, recognizing Eleanor's short-sighted focus on superficial gains over long-term stability. He saw her arrogance, her ruthlessness, as both a strength and a fatal flaw. He wasn't just buying a company, he was orchestrating a surgical intervention. He established secure, anonymous shell corporations, working through layers of trusted, covert financial proxies, each step shrouded in impenetrable secrecy. Every acquisition of shares, every strategic move, was designed to remain untraceable, building up his controlling interest without alerting Eleanor or the wider market. He was moving like a ghost through the financial world, a silent force meticulously accumulating power. The subtle warmth on his left wrist, emanating from the compass rose scar, had been a constant companion throughout this period, a quiet affirmation of his path. It hummed with a low, steady energy, a comforting presence that reminded him of the profound purpose driving his actions. It was more than just a scar. It was a symbol of his identity, a physical connection to the tactical brilliance and unwavering integrity he had honed in service. The climax of his strategic maneuver came swiftly and unexpectedly for Eleanor. One crisp morning, as she walked into her opulent office, a meticulously prepared document lay on her desk. It wasn't a hostile takeover notice or a public announcement. It was a private, unassailable legal document, delivered with surgical precision, informing her that the Centurion Group had officially acquired a controlling interest in Viridia Innovations. The document was brief, direct, and utterly irrefutable. It contained clauses and protocols so advanced, so airtight, that they hinted at an intelligence far beyond standard corporate mergers. It detailed the immediate activation of new board members, new corporate restructuring, and, most chillingly for Eleanor, a clause about immediate leadership review and potential restructuring of executive roles based on demonstrable adherence to the Centurion principles of long-term value, ethical governance, and inclusive leadership. Her carefully constructed world began to crack. Her initial reaction was furious disbelief. She called her top legal team, her financial advisors, her network of powerful contacts. But every avenue she explored led to the same dead end. The Centurion Group was unassailable, their acquisition seamless and legally impeccable. The shares had been bought, the contracts signed, the company was no longer hers. Panic began to set in, a cold dread seeping into her calculated composure. She tried to trace the source, to find the architect behind this silent coup, but the layers of anonymity were too complex, too perfectly constructed. The ultimate test for Eleanor wasn't just losing her company. It was losing control, losing to an unseen opponent whose tactics were utterly foreign to her world of public displays of power. She had always prided herself on being the smartest, the most ruthless, the one always in control. Now she was powerless, adrift in a sea of her own making, realizing with dawning horror that she had been outmaneuvered by a force she never saw coming. The stage was set, not just for a corporate takeover, but for a confrontation that would redefine power itself. The air in the meticulously appointed main boardroom of Viridia Innovations, usually crisp and controlled, crackled with an almost palpable tension. Sunlight, once streaming beneficently through the panoramic windows, now seemed to cast long, accusatory shadows. Eleanor Harding, her sharp features taut with barely suppressed fury, stood at the head of the polished obsidian table. She had spent the last 24 hours in a frantic, futile attempt to unravel the mystery of the Centurion Group. Her calls to her most trusted legal and financial advisors had yielded nothing but grim confirmation. The acquisition was airtight, seamless, and, most maddeningly, completely anonymous. She felt a cold dread creeping in, a gnawing uncertainty that pricked at her carefully constructed facade of control. Opposite her sat a collection of senior executives, their faces a mix of apprehension and veiled curiosity. They were still reeling from the shock of the hostile takeover, the sudden shift in power unsettling their carefully choreographed corporate dance. The agenda for this emergency board meeting, delivered with surgical precision just hours before, simply stated, Introduction of new controlling investor. A hush fell over the room as the heavy oak doors opened. Eleanor's gaze snapped to the entrance, her jaw tightening. She expected a phalanx of shrewd, unfamiliar faces, a legal team perhaps, or a stern-faced corporate raider. What she saw instead made her heart lurch, a cold wave of disbelief washing over her. Walking into the room, with a quiet dignity that commanded immediate attention, was Ethan Vance. He wore a simple dark suit, impeccably tailored, a stark contrast to the sleek, almost severe lines of Eleanor's power attire. His movements were steady, unhurried, despite the subtle tremor that still occasionally ran through his right hand. His eyes, once tired and overshadowed by desperation, now held a deep, unwavering resolve, reflecting a quiet strength that seemed to fill the room. He nodded almost imperceptibly to a few of the executives, who stared back in stunned silence. Eleanor's perfect composure shattered. "You!" she hissed, her voice barely a whisper, laced with incredulity and contempt. "What are you doing here? Get out! Security!" Ethan paused directly opposite her at the head of the table. His gaze, calm and steady, met her furious one. The familiar faint warmth on his left wrist, emanating from the subtle compass rose scar, spread through him, anchoring him. It was a silent affirmation of his journey, a quiet hum of power now fully realized. "There's no need for security, Ms. Harding," he stated, his voice low, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion. "I'm here by invitation." He reached into his inner jacket pocket and slowly, deliberately, withdrew a single official-looking document. He laid it flat on the gleaming table between them, turning it so the bold, embossed seal was facing her. It was a formal corporate proxy, signed and notarized, confirming his authority. "And as of this morning," he continued, his words landing with the precision of a dropped stone in a still pond, "I am the new controlling investor of Viridia Innovations. I am the architect of the Centurion Group. My operational codename, Ms. Harding, was Aegis." The revelation hung heavy in the air, a devastating blow. The executives around the table exchanged wide-eyed glances, murmuring in stunned disbelief. The dismissed veteran? The liability? The very man Eleanor had summarily rejected just months ago was now their new owner. The irony was a bitter pill. Eleanor's face went white, then mottled with crimson. Her breath hitched. She stared at the document, then back at Ethan, her mind racing, scrambling to reconcile the unassuming figure before her with the unseen, formidable force that had orchestrated her downfall. "This is impossible," she breathed, her voice a strangled whisper. You're a nobody, a dismissed job applicant. You have no corporate experience, no standing." Ethan leaned forward slightly, his eyes holding hers. "My standing, Ms. Harding, was honed in environments where true strategic thinking, efficiency, and resourcefulness were a matter of life and death, not just quarterly profits. My experience is in identifying true value, and more importantly, in recognizing systemic vulnerabilities and the arrogance of unchecked power." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Your dismissal of me, your casual disregard for potential, your focus on superficial metrics over genuine character, that was a vulnerability, one that the Centurion Group was designed to exploit." He pushed the document slightly closer to her. "Under the new structure, Ms. Harding," he stated, his voice hardening imperceptibly, "there will be significant changes, starting with leadership. Your demonstrable adherence to the Centurion principles of long-term value, ethical governance, and inclusive leadership has been, shall we say, notably absent." Her eyes blazed. "You can't do this! I built this company! I am the face of Viridia Innovations!" Ethan merely raised an eyebrow. "You built a company, Ms. Harding. I've acquired it. And the face of Viridia Innovations going forward will reflect values that prioritize integrity, genuine innovation, and respect for every individual, regardless of their background or perceived liability." He gestured calmly to the door. "Your services are no longer required. You're fired, Ms. Harding." The words, so casually, brutally familiar from her own past dismissals, now echoed with chilling precision. Eleanor stared at him, her empire crumbling around her, her power stripped away by the very man she had so arrogantly dismissed. The silence in the boardroom was deafening, punctuated only by her ragged breathing. The triumph was complete, and the vindication for Ethan Vance, the dismissed veteran, was absolute. The quiet strength had prevailed over the loudest arrogance. The air in the meticulously appointed main boardroom of Viridia Innovations, usually crisp and controlled, crackled with an almost palpable tension. Sunlight, once streaming beneficently through the panoramic windows, now seemed to cast long accusatory shadows. Eleanor Harding, her sharp features taut with barely suppressed fury, stood at the head of the polished obsidian table. She had spent the last 24 hours in a frantic, futile attempt to unravel the mystery of the Centurion Group. Her calls to her most trusted legal and financial advisors had yielded nothing but grim confirmation. The acquisition was airtight, seamless, and, most maddeningly, completely anonymous. She felt a cold dread creeping in, a gnawing uncertainty that pricked at her carefully constructed facade of control. Opposite her sat a collection of senior executives, their faces a mix of apprehension and veiled curiosity. They were still reeling from the shock of the hostile takeover, the sudden shift in power unsettling their carefully choreographed corporate dance. The agenda for this emergency board meeting, delivered with surgical precision just hours before, simply stated, Introduction of New Controlling Investor. A hush fell over the room as the heavy oak doors opened. Eleanor's gaze snapped to the entrance, her jaw tightening. She expected a phalanx of shrewd, unfamiliar faces, a legal team, perhaps, or a stern-faced corporate raider. What she saw instead made her heart lurch, a cold wave of disbelief washing over her. Walking into the room, with a quiet dignity that commanded immediate attention, was Ethan Vance. He wore a simple dark suit, impeccably tailored, a stark contrast to the sleek, almost severe lines of Eleanor's power attire. His movements were steady, unhurried, despite the subtle tremor that still occasionally ran through his right hand. His eyes, once tired and overshadowed by desperation, now held a deep, unwavering resolve, reflecting a quiet strength that seemed to fill the room. He nodded almost imperceptibly to a few of the executives, who stared back in stunned silence. Eleanor's perfect composure shattered. "You!" she hissed, her voice barely a whisper, laced with incredulity and contempt. "What are you doing here? Get out! Security!" Ethan paused directly opposite her at the head of the table. His gaze, calm and steady, met her furious one. The familiar faint warmth on his left wrist, emanating from the subtle compass rose scar, spread through him, anchoring him. It was a silent affirmation of his journey, a quiet hum of power now fully realized. "There's no need for security, Ms. Harding," he stated, his voice low, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion. "I'm here by invitation." He reached into his inner jacket pocket and slowly, deliberately, withdrew a single, official-looking document. He laid it flat on the gleaming table between them, turning it so the bold, embossed seal was facing her. It was a formal corporate proxy, signed and notarized, confirming his authority. "And as of this morning," he continued, his words landing with the precision of a dropped stone in a still pond, "I am the new controlling investor of Viridia Innovations. I am the architect of the Centurion Group. My operational codename, Ms. Harding, was Aegis." The revelation hung heavy in the air, a devastating blow. The executives around the table exchanged wide-eyed glances, murmuring in stunned disbelief. The dismissed veteran? The liability? The very man Eleanor had summarily rejected just months ago was now their new owner. The irony was a bitter pill. Eleanor's face went white, then mottled with crimson. Her breath hitched. She stared at the document, then back at Ethan, her mind racing, scrambling to reconcile the unassuming figure before her with the unseen, formidable force that had orchestrated her downfall. "This is impossible," she breathed, her voice a strangled whisper. You're a nobody, a dismissed job applicant. You have no corporate experience, no standing." Ethan leaned forward slightly, his eyes holding hers. "My standing, Ms. Harding, was honed in environments where true strategic thinking, efficiency, and resourcefulness were a matter of life and death, not just quarterly profits. My experience is in identifying true value, and more importantly, in recognizing systemic vulnerabilities and the arrogance of unchecked power." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Your dismissal of me, your casual disregard for potential, your focus on superficial metrics over genuine character, that was a vulnerability. One that the Centurion Group was designed to exploit." He pushed the document slightly closer to her. "Under the new structure, Ms. Harding," he stated, his voice hardening imperceptibly, "there will be significant changes, starting with leadership. Your demonstrable adherence to the Centurion principles of long-term value ethical governance, and inclusive leadership has been, shall we say, notably absent. Her eyes blazed. "You can't do this! I built this company. I am the face of Viridia Innovations." Ethan merely raised an eyebrow. "You built a company, Ms. Harding. I've acquired it. And the face of Viridia Innovations, going forward, will reflect values that prioritize integrity, genuine innovation, and respect for every individual, regardless of their background or perceived liability." He gestured calmly to the door. "Your services are no longer required. You're fired, Ms. Harding." The words, so casually, brutally familiar from her own past dismissals, now echoed with chilling precision. Eleanor stared at him, her empire crumbling around her, her power stripped away by the very man she had so arrogantly dismissed. The silence in the boardroom was deafening, punctuated only by her ragged breathing. The triumph was complete, and the vindication for Ethan Vance, the dismissed veteran, was absolute. The quiet strength had prevailed over the loudest arrogance. The air in the boardroom, moments ago thick with Eleanor Harding's disbelief, now vibrated with a palpable sense of awe. Her abrupt public dismissal sent ripples of shock and a strange sense of catharsis through the gathered executives. They watched, stunned, as she was escorted out by a silent, efficient security team, her face a mask of utter devastation. The whispers of Aegis and the Centurion Group morphed from abstract threats into concrete reality, embodied by the quiet man now standing at the head of the table. Ethan Vance, the dismissed liability, had orchestrated a masterpiece of strategic acquisition, a testament to his intelligence and unwavering resolve. His journey, once shadowed by hardship, now blazed with the undeniable light of vindication. The aftermath was swift and decisive. News of the hostile takeover, spearheaded by an anonymous veteran and orchestrated with military precision, swept through the tech world like wildfire. Headlines screamed of Eleanor Harding's spectacular downfall, detailing her ruthless business practices and the stark irony of her dismissal by the very man she'd cast aside. The subsequent investigations, fueled by the public outcry and the meticulous evidence uncovered by the Centurion Group's clandestine operations, revealed a pattern of unethical leadership, employee exploitation, and short-sighted decisions that prioritized personal gain over long-term company health. Her empire, built on a foundation of arrogance and dismissiveness, crumbled under the weight of undeniable truth. Eleanor Harding faced not only unprecedented public humiliation, but also a barrage of legal challenges for her questionable corporate practices. She would spend her future navigating courtrooms and legal battles, a stark contrast to the boardroom she once commanded. For Ethan Vance, the initial shock of public revelation gradually settled into a profound sense of purpose. The media frenzy eventually subsided, leaving behind a quiet, burgeoning peace. He was unequivocally recognized as the driving force behind the Centurion Group, his true identity as Aegis unveiled, not just to the corporate world, but to a nation that had once overlooked him. His immense wealth, the fruits of strategic investments and the acquisition of Viridia Innovations, was now his to command. He could have retreated into a life of luxury, but years of service had instilled in him a deeper calling. His resources were not for personal indulgence, they were for a far more meaningful mission. His first act as the new CEO of Viridia Innovations was to immediately reverse Eleanor Harding's previous dismissals, ensuring that every employee unjustly fired or marginalized by her policies was either reinstated or generously compensated. He personally oversaw the creation of a comprehensive support system for veterans seeking to transition into the tech industry, offering mentorship programs, specialized training, and guaranteed interviews. It was a symbolic victory, a powerful statement that resonated deeply within the company and beyond. He then channeled a significant portion of Viridia Innovations' resources, along with his personal wealth, into an ambitious new venture, Viridia Forward, a nonprofit initiative dedicated to bridging the digital divide and fostering inclusive innovation. This initiative transformed the sleek corporate offices of Viridia Innovations. While the core business continued, entire floors were repurposed. He established state-of-the-art training centers for underserved communities, providing free coding boot camps, digital literacy programs, and vocational training in emerging technologies. He created dedicated innovation hubs for disabled individuals, offering adaptive technology and specialized mentorship, allowing them to contribute their unique perspectives to the tech landscape. He personally oversaw every detail, from accessible workstations to comfortable collaborative spaces, ensuring every corner resonated with inclusivity, a stark contrast to the company's former atmosphere of exclusive elitism. He championed projects focused on developing technology for social good, apps for community support, platforms for accessible education, and tools to combat misinformation. Its success was widely documented, serving as a blueprint for similar initiatives nationwide. Beyond Viridia Forward, Ethan recognized the profound impact of unseen prejudice. He leveraged his influence to establish the Aegis Foundation, a global nonprofit dedicated to advocating for ethical leadership, promoting inclusivity in corporate environments, and supporting veterans' successful reintegration into civilian life. His vision was clear: to empower individuals, regardless of their background or perceived limitations, to reach their full potential, to challenge systemic biases, and to create a world where talent and integrity were valued above all else. He personally spearheaded programs to bring mentorship and capital to marginalized entrepreneurs, proving that true innovation could arise from anywhere. He also initiated a vast international program to research and document the societal and economic costs of discrimination in the workplace, tirelessly advocating for policies that championed diversity and meritocracy. His tireless efforts and quiet humility quickly earned him the respect and admiration of business leaders and philanthropists globally. Weeks later, a quiet, almost serene afternoon found Ethan sitting with his newly appointed chief operating officer, a former senior executive who had quietly supported him during the takeover, and Mr. Liam Carter, a sharp, independent journalist who had followed Ethan's story and helped bring the truth to light. Sunlight streamed through the large window of what was now his CEO office, illuminating newly arranged, comfortable furniture. The entire building hummed with the joyful sounds of students in a new coding lab downstairs, their laughter echoing through the renovated halls, the quiet murmur of conversations in the communal cafe, and the focused hum of developers collaborating in the open-plan innovation hubs. It was a stark, comforting contrast to the cold, imposing silence it once held under Eleanor Harding's tyrannical gaze. Liam, now a celebrated Pulitzer-winning investigative journalist for his fearless role in exposing Eleanor Harding's corporate malfeasance, leaned back in his chair, a contented sigh escaping him. He had written extensively about the Centurion Group's unique approach to investment and leadership, highlighting Ethan's quiet brilliance. "It's incredible, Ethan," he said, gesturing around the vibrant space, his voice tinged with genuine awe. "From a dismissed job applicant to the CEO of this entire corporation. You've not only reclaimed your position, but you've transformed an entire industry. You've achieved something truly extraordinary. You've shown that true leadership isn't just about profit margins, but the people and the principles behind it." Ethan, now dressed in comfortable, elegant business casual attire that reflected his inner serenity rather than ostentation, looked at the small, faint scar on his left wrist. It was no longer a hidden mark of shame or trauma. It now seemed to glow faintly, almost imperceptibly, under the warm afternoon light, a constant reminder of his journey. Unbeknownst to him, the Centurion Group's new official logo, discreetly incorporated into all Viridia Innovations branding, was a subtle, artistic rendering of the compass rose, its design symbolizing guidance, purpose, and global reach. "It was my compass, wasn't it?" he mused, tracing the faint lines of the scar with his thumb, feeling its smooth, familiar contours. "It reminded me who I was, even when I had forgotten. It reminded me of the promises I made to myself, to my comrades, to never let the past define me, but to let it fuel me." And it held the truth. He looked at Liam, a silent acknowledgement of his unwavering support and partnership in exposing the truth. "It reminded me that even when I had nothing else, I still had my truth, my principles, and the belief that courage can alter destinies and that light always finds a path, even in the deepest darkness. And that, my friend," he added, his eyes shining with a profound gratitude that radiated from within, "that was everything." His journey, once marked by profound suffering and dismissal, was now illuminated by an unwavering purpose, a testament to the enduring power of integrity, the relentless pursuit of justice, and the transformative magic of human connection. The whispers of the past no longer haunted him. They guided him, reminding him that even the smallest spark of compassion could ignite a revolution, and that true legacy was built not on wealth or power, but on genuine impact and shared humanity. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies, and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming narratives that delve into the profound human spirit and the power of unseen heroes. Thank you for joining our journey. The once familiar bitterness of the urban wind no longer carried the sting of indifference for Ethan Vance. Now 39, his frame was no longer gaunt, but strong and graceful, his spirit vibrant, his eyes alight with a profound sense of peace and purpose. Viridia, once a backdrop for his despair, had become a thriving testament to his enduring compassion and the transformative power of inclusive innovation. The Viridia Forward initiative, which he had painstakingly brought to life from the ashes of Eleanor Harding's elitist corporation, had flourished beyond his wildest dreams. It was no longer a nascent project, but a national model, with bustling branches in 5 major cities across the country, providing comprehensive support to thousands of formerly underserved individuals and families, and serving as dynamic tech hubs. Each Viridia Forward Center was a testament to his vision. Free coding boot camps humming with new learners, digital literacy programs teaching essential skills, and dedicated innovation labs for disabled individuals, offering a path to empowerment and self-discovery through technology. Ethan, though no longer directly managing the daily operations of Viridia Forward, remained its guiding spirit. He was a beloved fixture, often seen walking through the communal spaces, his presence a quiet anchor for those still navigating their own paths to success. He would sit with young students in the new coding labs, his hands gently guiding them through complex algorithms, sharing stories of his own struggles and triumphs. His words were always gentle, always encouraging, carrying the weight of lived experience and the light of hard-won hope. He often led informal workshops on ethical AI and accessible design, demonstrating how technology could be used to uplift, not just to profit. His former insights, once dismissed as irrelevant, had found a new, legitimate home, celebrated for their raw honesty and evocative power within the very walls that once would have scorned them. His life, once defined by loss and isolation, was now overflowing with purpose, camaraderie, and the profound satisfaction of truly making a difference. He was honored as a hero, not just for his tenacity in seeking justice, but for his enduring compassion and his unwavering commitment to lifting others. Ethan dedicated a significant portion of his time to ensuring that no other deserving individual would suffer his fate. He became a passionate advocate for digital equity and ethical corporate governance on a national level, his voice, once a whisper, now clear and resonant as he advised congressional committees on equitable access to technology and inclusive workplaces. He didn't just speak, he acted. Collaborating closely with Liam Carter, his steadfast ally, who had since won a Pulitzer for his investigative journalism that exposed Eleanor Harding's corporate malfeasance, Ethan co-authored a memoir titled The Compass Rose: From Shadows to Light. The book, a raw and poignant account of his life, from his forgotten military service to his years of professional dismissal and ultimate reclamation, became an unexpected bestseller. It resonated deeply with readers across the nation, inspiring widespread empathy for marginalized professionals and driving significant, tangible policy changes within government funding allocations for community support programs, especially those focusing on tech training and veteran reintegration. Crucially, a significant portion of the book's proceeds went directly back to the Viridia Forward Initiative and the Aegis Foundation, ensuring their long-term sustainability and continued expansion. The Aegis Foundation had also soared, establishing innovative digital learning centers and vibrant tech incubators in underserved communities globally. Ethan personally led workshops, teaching young people, especially girls, how to code, how to critically analyze information, and how to use technology as tools for social good. He believed that technological fluency, combined with ethical principles, was the key to unlocking future potential. He provided grants for unconventional tech ventures, ensuring that initiatives like assistive technology, open-source education platforms, and community-driven data projects received the recognition and funding they deserved. challenging the narrow, profit-driven definitions that Eleanor Harding had once enforced. He also established the Harding Humility Scholarship, an irony not lost on him, fully funding higher education for bright, ambitious students from impoverished families, ensuring that talent, unlike his own past, was never suppressed by circumstance. The scholarship's motto, etched subtly on each recipient's certificate, was, "From dismissal, innovation takes flight," a direct nod to his own arduous journey and the symbolic compass rose scar that had guided him. He also initiated a vast international program to research and digitize thousands of lost or suppressed innovations from marginalized communities throughout history, ensuring their contributions would never be forgotten again. He worked tirelessly to establish access to technology as a fundamental human right, not a luxury. The story culminates on a warm golden afternoon in the sun-drenched central courtyard of the flagship Viridia Innovations campus in Viridia. The courtyard, meticulously tended by staff and volunteers, was a vibrant oasis of calm, alive with the buzzing of drones used in a new urban mapping project, the soft murmur of conversations from a communal cafe, and the distant, joyful sounds of children engaged in an outdoor robotics class. Ethan sat on a rustic wooden bench, custom-built by the Viridia Forward Vocational Training Program. The bench's design subtly incorporated elements of the compass rose from his scar, its intricate curves carved into the polished wood. He was surrounded by a small group of young students from the Aegis Foundation's mentorship program. They listened intently, their faces reflecting a mixture of respect and quiet hope, as he shared a story not of grand victories, but of small acts of kindness that had kept his spirit alive during his darkest days. He emphasized the importance of resilience, of finding opportunity in unexpected places, and of using one's unique voice to create change. These young individuals, once facing uncertain futures, were now empowered and thriving, their eyes holding the promise of new beginnings, a testament to the campus's transformative power. In his hand, Ethan held a small, beautifully polished silver compass rose charm, custom-made to precisely match the shape and size of his scar. Its surface, gleaming under the afternoon sun, reflected the verdant hues of the courtyard and the bright, hopeful faces of the children. The intricate details of the miniature compass rose, once a painful reminder, now shone with renewed brilliance, a testament to his enduring legacy. He turned the charm slowly in his palm, feeling its smooth, familiar contours. The faint, warm hum that had always accompanied his scar seemed stronger now, a comforting presence. The symbol of the compass rose, once a private mark, was now incorporated into Viridia Innovations' official logo, subtly etched onto all company branding, its points reaching out in every direction, symbolizing guidance, purpose, and global reach, embodying the upliftment the company and its initiatives provided. He looked up, his eyes, once weary and shadowed, now reflecting a deep, serene joy and an unbreakable spirit, as he watched a group of children from Viridia Forward playfully launch a fleet of small, educational drones into the clear blue sky from the rooftop garden. The drones circled once, twice, then flew off towards the horizon, a powerful gesture symbolizing hope, innovation, and the promise of a brighter future for all. The dismissed veteran, once forgotten, had not only unveiled a corporate secret that changed everything, but had become the architect of a new, more compassionate world, where technology truly belonged to everyone. If this story stirred your heart, if it reminds you that courage can alter destinies and that light always finds a path even in the deepest darkness, please leave a comment. Share this story with those who need inspiration. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell to never miss our upcoming narratives that delve into the profound human spirit and the power of unseen heroes. Thank you for joining our journey.